In a funked out world, in a funky world where you start out with some goo, it's just goo on some paper, and then you fast forward a little bit, and then all of a sudden you are in New York City, and then all of a sudden you're trying to transition into, a fairy world. Fairies combined with butterflies, combined with fireflies, in the forest, that is, in the city. It is both, it is combined, and there's magic there because there's all these energies, and they're combined, and at the same time, there's a little bit of a manifestation from certain things that are technologies, and they inspire a little bit, and all of a sudden, poof, you've got brand inspiration, combination, collaboration, contemporary connections to be able to make what is now the Change4Games Studios and Dinky Tehc brand. Oh yeah, this is a fake commercial for the brand. Oh yeah, here we go. So when you start looking at clothing brands and other luxury brands that are out there, what are you really absorbing? You're absorbing a bit of art that is interesting, unique marketing. When they put that stuff out there, it's sort of like an experience, I suppose you could say. And when you get down to brass tacks, there's a little bit of a coincidence between the Dinky Tehc brand and something called DKNY. Oh yeah. And one day when I was in New York City, oh yeah, I started to Google Change4Games and Games for Change. Oh yeah, to try to align with the brand that's being developed. Oh yeah. And now today our brand is called Change4Games Studios, and it's kind of a coincidence that Dinky Tehc is the name of the brand, but at the same time Dinky is spelled D-I-N-K, and the initials for DKNY is DKNY, but it's also D-I-N-K-Y for Dinky, and at the same time when you take out one of the letters, the I in Dinky Tehc, it looks like D-N-K-Y, which is close to DKNY, which is a little bit of a parallel. Oh yeah, it's kind of an origin story. Oh yeah, it's very strange, because also I was doing WeWork in New York City for a while, and there's a DKNY building. Oh yeah, and I was working there quite often. It's in Midtown Manhattan, and it's very peculiar, because the way things align, it was just like, what do you know? And there's also a little bit of a card game that is mixed into the game that we're trying to advertise here today. So we got Change4Games Studios, on the map, and how is this card game played? It's a little bit mysterious. It's like the game of Magic, but it's also like kind of combining with credit cards and credit card rewards and such things, because those rewards cause actions, and those actions cause reactions that are causing rewards. And that is sort of the game that has to do with Change4Games Studios. That is the game, that is the brand, that is the Dinky Tehc Change4Games Studios world. That is the intention. It started in Central Park in New York City, in essence, one day, somewhat, actually sort of on the outskirts a little bit, when Pokemon Go started to be played. And it was a unique feature because everybody is moving about, and they are making actions, and they are causing influence into the marketplaces as time has unfolded. But there's not enough of that happening, because now we are a little bit short on those actions, and we need to get back to those roots, because it's just a bit of a process that we're incorporating into our game that is Change4Games Studios, that is also accompanied by Dinky Tehc, which is the energy and the environment of Change4Games Studios, is again like outlined by something that relates to fireflies and butterflies combined. Oh yeah. Such little creatures and critters that are all collaborating in with each other, and so they become weird little unique little critters that will be formed into the card game that is Dinky Tehc and Change4Games Studios. And it's a card game because credit card rewards again cause actions and reactions in essence. So stay with this motive. Stay with this motive. So Games for Change. Games for Change is an existing organization within New York City, and at the same time, because there was a coincidence that organization happened to exist, I was able to connect with them and actually volunteer a while back. And at the same time, there was that connection with DKNY clothing, because there's this fundamental foundational interest to connect with clothing and the brands for clothing and such things. It's not about where they're manufactured, because these days certain manufacturing brands are being called out for where they're manufacturing necessarily, but there's still an energy, there's an essence. That is actually what's being marketed, that's what's actually being sold, that's what actually is being bought. So even though items that are being manufactured in other places that are sort of off-brand and a little bit strange because it's technically connected with lower value manufacturing items in different places that are overseas, those brands still remain strong, because in essence those brands are what the experience is, and in essence they're still able to make sales off the back ends of those brands regardless of where they're getting their items manufactured, even though they're saying they're being made in other places and manufactured in other places and spaces. there still is an essence of that brand story that's ringing through and gives people the experience that rings true, that makes people happy when they run through those brand encounters. Oh yeah, so their sales will dip from the manufacturing flaw, outburst leak that is in the news lately, to be able to tell other people where their stuff is manufactured. But at the same time, they should be able to recover, because those brand experiences are very strong and it's very unique. Oh yeah, and so that is what is trying to be built within Dinky Tehc and Change4Games Studios. Oh yeah, we're trying to outline the environment today especially. Oh yeah, we are trying to outline the environment. The environment is very important. The environment of Change4Games Studios is what the whole world is, to be able to transpose into the world and be able to kickstart that over into the world. But in today's episode, we're trying to make it like an advertisement for like Dolce & Gabbana, for example, but Dinky Tehc is like the D, and the G is like Games for Change. And in this instance, it's like Dinky Tehc and Change4Games, or Dinky Tehc and Dinky DKNY and Games for Change. And we're trying to transpose that with Dinky Tehc and Change4Games Studios. Oh yeah, because this environment is very much like Central Park to begin with. And we want to convey the interesting nature of Central Park as sort of the foundation, I guess you could say, because there's a lot of mysticism in that park. There's a lot of artists in New York City. There's a lot of art, and those combining features combined with weird little creatures and critters and forest critters that are able to come together, are able to make a card game that in essence combines like credit card games in essence with like the magic card games in essence, because those magic card games are combinations of different critters that equal to different energies. For example, we actually have a little bit of a weird sort of pipeline collaboration with like East Asia, which, you know, is like the Far East in the island country, to be able to try to make a collaboration brand in the JP world. That is an interesting world. Japan is where like the foundation for the development of the land and the structural interests of the mentality that has to do with the development of the land and the outlay and the look of the culture and the people and the processes that have to do with the design and the fabric and the nature of, you know, acting like dressing fun is interesting and is commonly possible on a day-to-day basis. And that foundational element that comes from JP is in essence weaved into the fabric of the culture within Japan, often for the most part, because it's very much about fun and interesting suits to be able to wear outside. And it's all good because every day is sort of a weird day, and it's at least acknowledged in that world, in that culture. And so that is the intention, is to be able to weave that fabric of like anime, for example, into the fabric of everyday life, and making these collaborations of different creatures and critters, because those powers are able to combine and connect, just like forest critters of the forest, and like in Central Park and in different spaces and places in the world, to be able to expand that energy into different spaces in the world by giving collaboration energy to everybody. For example, in our specific collaboration in Japan that's going on necessarily is a sort of work in progress, and is very peculiar and very mystical actually, because it has to do with mystical creatures and elements and mythological creatures that are being spoken about through different languages that are actually like feelings. We're expressing and exchanging feelings that are adding up to different energies that are unknown and unforeseen at the current time, but we're trying to make the new world as a thing, as something that can be developed and is developing and unfolding, because these energies are collaborating and they're crossing over, and as they cross over they're coalescing and they're making new energies on a consistent day-to-day basis, because the two cultures, the two sides of these two cultures are clashing. I am from America in essence, so those two cultures are connecting in terms of the ability to be able to connect with more consistent dressing and interesting garbs and interesting outfits on a day-to-day basis, being accepted within culture like it is in Japan, and being able to connect it with like a certain person, a certain energy, a certain example from Japan that is in essence like a start point place that is trying to be able to be a source energy, and we're trying to coalesce the source energies to be able to combine the two cultures so that this energy can expand throughout the world, and this economy type can expand throughout the world, so that this interest to be able to combine two foundational cultural mindsets is able to expand throughout the world. But there's also an element of sound making and art making and such things that are trying to connect, and the two styles are able to connect from different cultures around the world, and the east and the west side are able to sort of meet in the middle in a spiritual sense, and this spirituality interest connects between Buddha and the different styles of spirituality throughout the world, so that in the space, so that all these items are able to coalesce and again make like a card game. So it's like we're drawing cards, but we're making cards with art, but it's like magic, but it's also combined with credit cards, that world, because the credit card world is combined with action taking and bonus making and such things, but we're making our own version of like Pokemon Go cards, for example, but also Change4Games Studios is a world environment that is just a transposition of the nature of the world into like some kind of a church, but it's not a church because it's not based upon one single religion in essence, but it's also traces it back to the original time when you're talking about the original place, which was in Central Park, which was also related to DKNY and Games for Change, which I volunteered at as an organization that has many, many interesting games for change that are attached to it as an interesting volunteering organization that has games for change that are digital games that cause real actual change, that cause real actual action. And that is a foundational principle, as well as the design and the development of interesting luxury brand art-making design for future reference to be able to continue to develop new designs, and combining those two elements of Change4Games and Games for Change to be able to combine that into one element that is Dinky Tehc and Change4Games Studios of high fashion luxury brand music making elements and DJing and the art world and the high fashion and the film culturation and all these things combined and collaborating into one mush pot and melt pot and smelt pot, but also all that combined and times and connected with Change4Games Studios and actual games of the gaming world and the gaming environment and the gaming world and the Olympics at the same time, which are real games that are played in sports, and combining and coalescing all these things at the same time. So we're just starting with this foundational origin story within New York and then transitioning to Japan to be able to combine the two worlds and the two elements and the two culturations to be able to mix in a melting pot and a smelting pot. And as we continue with a specific collaboration with a specific person in Japan, that we're trying to unfold these specific energies and unweave them and make sort of magical weird little energies by not even using languages but just using frequencies and actually trying to tap into weird frequencies that are surrounding and just digging into the universe and digging into stars, digging into spaces, into past mythological energies, into past mythological stories, into past mythological narratives, and unfolding that into weaving that into spirituality, into different forms of spirituality, and making different blankets, like different crosshatch weaving blankets. And this is in essence the conceptual fake commercial for Dinky Tehc and Change4Games Studios, which has to do with the fabric, making new blankets of fabrics of spirituality and game making and high fashion art making and sound making and such, that is also connected to the film world, which is all a continuously evolutionary evolving process in a new industry, because as you've seen, the industries are growing and technologies are changing, and so as a result of technologies changing, the industries are changing as well, and the abilities to make AI art into films is very unique and also ever present and changing. So the only thing we've got is real life that's left in reality, and so as that goes on, we want to be able to use giving as the highest form of art and be able to change that into being able to play games as the new film industry in essence, and all those are philanthropic energy games. So yeah, we're trying to make this collaboration with Japan to be able to make this crazy energy in essence, and just try to make this crazy mindset come about from crazy spirituality that's not even coming from language. It's just coming from feelings and frequencies and vibrations and sensations as we continue to try to unfold these things, because this is inside of the fabric of that culture. It's inside of the way people dress. It's inside of animation and anime as a fundamental sense that the harnessing powers that's within anime is able to be translated and transposed into all people that are walking on the street as it is okay and normal and seen often for people to dress as anime characters, because that is foundationally embracing the powers of the people that are standing behind the characters that are being represented by the suits, that are being represented by the anime characters, that are being represented by an interesting energy, that are being interestingly represented by an energy that has to do with the potential in real life to occur. And it's just starting out as drawings as like a storyboard for potential to exist, and we're trying to realize that potential on the back end by putting real products out into the air, and also maybe trying to make a personal brand for a specific source energy in the JP, and then trying to make certain products from that and such things. We'll have to see how it goes, but where the energies flow and such things, because the world is a finite place and it can only travel so far. So we want to try to coalesce with all the countries in the world, all the countries, all the territories, all the places, all the spaces, with this fundamental foundational energy. And trying to collaborate with, in the mindset sense, back in the past, with DKNY, Donna Karen, New York, and Games for Change, which are two interesting organizations that are symbols for the past, and combining all those things with Pokemon Go, the video game, is the foundational origin story today, where we're talking about like a new anime being born and such things today. If you visualize the born and the birth for all these energies coming together in one coalescing sense, that this is the end of this commercial for the Dinky Tehc and Change4Games Studios new world that is trying to be birthed somewhat through this podcast, but also through other little media elements that are hoping to spawn and spin from this in the future sense. Thanks again for now. Hopefully the visualization was somewhat possible from this weird little podcast commercial visualization conceptualization situation. Anyway, yeah, all right. Thanks again, Dinky Tehc. Bye. Bye, I mean.